Bernard Parks. I'll be acting as the chair today. We have two items on the agenda, and we can start off with item 1.
Good morning. Jim Clark, Director of Federal Relations in the Mayor's Office, and I'm joined today by Stacy Sosa with the CAO's office, and also David Bennett, who is a graduate student at USC who is interning in the CAO's office, and he'll be making the CAO's report today.
Very good.
First, I'd like to mention in the material I passed out this morning, there's a memo. Councilman Parks had asked for some information on funding programs for green taxis, and there's a memo there on various federal, state, and local programs that are available, and be happy to work with his office and the transportation folks as well on helping to secure some of that funding.
Yeah. What we will do on this is probably create a motion and get LADOT to take a lead on this, because they have the taxi commission, and ask Mr. Rosenthal and his committee to move forward and see how we can, and I think you told me we've already taken a position on the two federal legislations which can set the standards, and then from there that will then drive the issue of going forward on the other grants.
Correct.
Okay.
Next item.
If I could just comment on the overall strategy again. The President announced a couple of days ago a desire to have a $50 billion stimulus package for infrastructure development. And I heard, which really put a big smile on my face, the word infrastructure bank in such a public pronouncement, which was very gratifying. I know Mayor Villaraigosa and Mr. Garcetti, our President, met with the President of the United States many times, and in one of his most recent visits, not his last visit to Los Angeles, but one before that, the Mayor and Eric were walking the President up the steps to Air Force One, and they reminded him of 30-10, 10-30 in the year 2020, and we threw a few numbers out. They did, and the President got the slogan that we want to accelerate our Measure R funded projects by borrowing off of a bank that would then be repaid by the incoming stream of sales tax revenue that we all agreed to tax ourselves with. So it's really exciting. And this could bring in, like we've talked about, 166,000 jobs in the short run. In the long run, about, 3,000 to 4,000 permanent jobs if all 12 projects that we would like to accelerate have an opportunity to be built. In the latest overview conversation, hearing now our President talk about that, he's doing a press conference right now as we're standing here, focusing on international issues and 9/11, but that is still a topic on a lot of people's minds. Do you have any senses of how that $50 billion might be used, how it might tie into where we are today, and how it could affect Measure R?
Yes, sir. The idea of the infrastructure bank has been floated. It was floated previously in the President's budget. It's been also, there's legislation to actually authorize. There needs to be some authorizing legislation to create the infrastructure bank, and then, as you know, then the Congress then appropriates money into it. But it's a very positive sign. It's one of the vehicles that we've been looking at as a method for being able to finance the 30-10 is the use of an infrastructure bank. It is only $50 billion, and it's to be divided up between rail and airports and transit. So, but any amount of money that would be available. That
you said you need implementing legislation, obviously, and I know Senator Boxer has been very strong on it. Our other Senator Feinstein has as well, and every congressional delegation member that I've talked to from the county, has expressed interest, from David Dreyer, right. In the east side of the region to Henry Waxman and Jane Harmon on the west side. So is there anything we can do as a city here to support this further in the context of this meeting?
The mayor has already issued a press release and putting together a letter to support President Obama on this initiative, and anything the council could do to support it would be beneficial as well.
Would you like us to do
yes, sir, we'd work with you on drafting a resolution if you'd like on that.
Very good. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Next, I wanted to point out an article that I provided to you out of Time magazine on how the stimulus is changing America that I thought you might find interesting. I think it's commonly agreed, even the critics about the stimulus, that it's been responsible for the creation of 3 million jobs, as cited in this. But what this article goes on to say is not only was this about jobs, but it also fundamentally changed a lot of the ways that we're doing things here in the United States, particularly with our energy usage and research into new energy projects. We've dramatically expanded broadband, or will be expanding broadband throughout this country in high tech. Our whole healthcare system in terms of the way that we keep track of medical records. So a lot of, not very much credit is being given to the administration and the president about the fundamental changes that are being made as a result of the stimulus. All they point to is the fact of all the money that's been spent and whether or not how many jobs that you've created. So I thought it would be an interesting article if you're looking for that. We're part of what's called the Big Cities Network, which is, I don't know, about 20 cities altogether that are receiving ARA funds that get together on a regular basis, at least by telephone. New York City is the lead on that, and they've been kind enough to put together this chart, which is extremely hard to read, with the small print, but it's a comparison of the amount of ARA dollars that 15 cities of the largest cities have been receiving. And we do quite well in this. We're better than all the other cities except for New York. And the reason also is that sometimes you're comparing apples and oranges. I mean, New York runs the education system. They have the healthcare system, so they get a lot of money that way. The state has given them a lot of the aid that went to the state, got passed down through them. Houston shows having more money than us, but if you actually look, most of that money, almost all of it except for $100 million, is money that actually is going to independent entities outside the city. So I'd be happy at some point to get together with any of your staffs to go over this and review it and whatever, but I would say overall we're doing better than, or at least as well as every other major city in terms of, the only one that's missing off this chart that I'd really like to see is Chicago because of the influence of the Obama administration there. But I think it speaks quite well for the efforts that we're doing. Along that same line, we had a phone conversation yesterday, and I know that the committee has asked before that we could try to put together a cumulative jobs report on how many jobs over the course of the time since ARA has been in place that jobs have been either retained or created in the private or public sector. And as you may know, the OMB now requires that the reporting is done on a quarterly basis and not as a cumulative basis. I posed this question to the other cities that were on the call as to whether or not they've had the similar requests from their governing bodies, and New York, Philadelphia, and Phoenix have all said that they had requests for the cumulative jobs report and that none of them were able to accurately be able to put together a cumulative job report. The problem being, when you do that, is some of these jobs are very temporary, like the summer youth jobs. They're there for 3 months and then they go out of existence. So I would, on behalf of the CAO's office, I'd like to make a request that we just try and stick to what the OMB reports, which is the jobs on a quarterly basis. The CAO's office also does a monthly health report so that they can generally give you a month-by-month status, but it's nearly impossible for us to be able to put together a cumulative jobs report. Wanted to also share with you the latest statistics from recovery.gov on how the money is being paid out by the federal government. There are 3 categories. Tax benefits, 77% of the stimulus money has been paid out by the federal government. With entitlements, 64% of it has been paid out. And in the area of contracts, grants, and loans, 53%. This is an increase from about the mid-40s the last time I reported to you. This is the
Let me ask, are you referencing the charts?
No, I'm referencing now the recovery.gov, what their website shows.
All right.
So nationally, 53% of the money that is available in terms of contracts, grants, and loans, which is the money that we generally, the pot of money in which we're receiving money, has been paid out by the federal government. If you look on our charts, you will see that we have only expended 13% of the money that we've been awarded. And in terms of reimbursements, we've only been reimbursed about 10% of the money that we're being. So that would, in comparison to what the federal government is showing, I would say, though, a lot of that money is money that goes to states and then gets passed down to local government. And in, again, talking with my colleagues from other cities, our numbers are not that far out of line with where other cities are in terms of the expenditures. So again, it's a slower process than probably the administration thought, and people ask the questions, where's the recovery? Well, we're still only 87% of the money that we've been awarded has yet to be spent here. And we're trying to
explain that to me. 87% of it has not been spent.
Has not been spent by us.
And is it a matter of the mechanics of putting it together, or the hiring? What is the slowdown?
Well, several things. One is, first of all, we have a 3-year period of time to expend this, so it's not to be all expended within 1 year. The other is that in certain cases, it's a pass-through of money that we get awarded from the state, and then the state. So we know we're going to get the money, but the money's coming through the state, and we have to do those kind of things. And then a lot of it is contracting arrangements that we have to do, putting things out to bid and proposal and whatever. One of the things we want to do for you, though, is to be able to have a pretty good, accurate tracking system to see if we have any really red flags that we have to be worried about, particularly at the end of the process, because we have to spend all the money within 3 years, and I don't want to get to a point where we're so far behind on some projects that we're unable to spend the money by the end of the 3-year period of time.
Right. And I'm looking at your overall job creation so far. Could you verbalize that to me? How many jobs have we created at this point? And what is our potential for the 83% of the money that we have in the pipeline?
Sir, that was the point that I was trying to make. It again is the other cities that I talked to in New York and Philadelphia and Phoenix have all tried to quantify what is the cumulative jobs that have been, and they've not been able to do that because of the fact that some of these jobs are temporary, the summer jobs come and they go. And so the best that we're able to do is, and is what the federal government is requiring us to do, is each quarter we can tell you how many jobs have been created within the quarter. And the CAO's office has even gone one step further that other cities have not, in that they do a monthly report so that we can tell you each month how many jobs have been created. And I'll let Stacy answer that question for you. But as far as being able to tell you a cumulative number, it's nearly impossible to be able to do that.
All right, I'll take that, but then the bigger question is going to be the 83% of the money that we have sitting there going through the pipe, going through the bureaucracy. What kind of a projections do you see that money by the time it's spent, job-wise?
We can get that back. I don't know if you have that.
We anticipate coming back with a more detailed report regarding jobs and our expenditures and progress with our R grants. I think right now what we've seen over the last 6 months is we've been averaging about 700 FTEs employed per month, and we've seen a steady increase. So I think we will continue to see a steady increase in job creation as some of our larger grant awards start spending their money. For example, like Smart Grid and BTOP, ECBG, those are awards that are really in the beginning stages of grant implementation.
See. Okay, thanks.
Last two that I wanted to mention was we're waiting on, and you could segue, the BTOP 2 awards are supposed to be announced at the end of September, the week of the 27th. We're anticipating, we have two proposals, one which was presented to you just at the last meeting on the LA RICS, which is $172 million. So far we've gotten good word on that proposal that, you know, there's consideration of. The other is with ITA has a proposal that they're doing as well. So that could be some additional money that we hope to see. But other than that, there's really nothing new that's coming down. And the last thing that I wanted to mention was, while this is not ARA funding, with the passage of what was called the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act, or the Financial Reform Act that got a lot of attention recently. There was money available there for neighborhood stabilization, and the City of Los Angeles is being awarded an additional $9 million in neighborhood stabilization funds. So this added to the $100 million that we received through ARA for neighborhood stabilization. The most of, I think we were the second most of anybody in the country after in the state of Michigan was number one, the entire state, and about $32 million that we received in a neighborhood stabilization funding in a program that was available prior to ARA being put in place. So we've gotten over $140 million for neighborhood stabilization.
Let me just ask, is that, because I just saw a news article on that, is that part of what, NSP2, or is that going to be a third program?
That's a third. Again, it's not part of ARA. It was incorporated within the Dodd-Frank Financial Reform Act, the Wall Street Reform Act.
Okay. So therefore it's a third program, but pretty much the same qualifications?
Well, this one, NSP2 was a competitive grant that we were able to get $100 million. This is formula money. So that
but the same criteria?
Same criteria, right. We can use it the same way to expand the program.
Okay. Do we have have we made the decision we're going to be using the criteria of Program 1 or 2, because Program 2 had a much more defined and smaller working area? Let
me have the Housing Department get back to you on that, since the award was just announced this week. So,
on your summary, which I really appreciate how you're doing it and the clarity of it, on page 3 of page 6 in the beginning, about 5 issues down, category grants, it says Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program Grant. As you know, in Venice, I have a tremendous crisis right now of cars and campers. I was there last night with the sanitation crews cleaning up the mess again, and we're moving rather rapidly on creating a safe program from streets to homes, and we're going to enforce the law more vigorously on those blocks where it's become intolerable with cars and campers, and especially discharging of refuge into the street and into the sidewalks. I literally saw a lot of it yesterday. We had a great coordinated city effort there, from sanitation to LAPD to DOT, and every morning they're going through those neighborhoods where we're overwhelmed with cars and campers. We've been working with Mike Arnold, who sat here before us in the committee, who I consider to be a brilliant, bright light on the whole issue of homelessness. And I know, Jim, you've taken an interest in it every time you go back to Washington. And I just want to know, in that grant category where it says Housing, Economic Development, Homeless Prevention, Rapid Rehousing Program, the status of it, how much money are we talking about, and will Venice be one of the groups through the LASA group that will be working with us on this? That's on page 3 of 6. Do we have any update or any status of those kinds of funds, which are critically needed in Venice right now?
I think right now the city is receiving $29.4 million in formula funding through that grant, and through June it looks like we've expended about $3.6 million of that award. As far as the actual activities themselves, we'd have to...
Did you get a brief? I was going to set up a briefing for your staff with Mike Arnold and also Matt.
We meet with Mike regularly, but I'd like an official update here in the committee as to any ARA money that will be made available for the homeless prevention, rapid rehousing. I need it in Venice, and we're getting more and more attention among community groups. I'm in concert with the police on it as well, but it's a problem, and we're looking for stimulus money to help us in this program.
Get back to you on that. Yes, sir.
One thing I was going to ask on that also is most of that money, or all of that money, coming through and going to LASA, or is that a separate allocation for the city?
LASA. It goes to LASA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through LAPD.
Yeah.
And as the public needs to know, LASA is a joint county-city organization that brings the various political groups together. People think the councilman is responsible for the cars and campers and homelessness. It's basically a county effort because health and welfare is their responsibility. But the cooperation is key and the coordination is key. And LASA is a great group and Mike Arnold's a great leader of it. But I wanted to get more specifics for my Venice crisis I'm in.
And with that, I'll turn it over to David Bennett.
Let me just make the record reflect Mr. Alarcon has joined us, and we have 4 of the 5 members here. Thank you.
Good morning.
Well, let me just ask one thing before you get started. On one of the reports, it shows that there were several requests by committee members. Is there any update on when they will get that information that they've asked? It's on the smaller report where it shows several council members on page 2 had requested feedback on, Mr. Garcetti had a couple, Mr. Rosenthal had a couple, so very good.
We discussed the cumulative job creation and the problems that we're having with that.
So, however, we will be coming forward with a report shortly that touches on jobs, expenditures, and reimbursements today through quarter 2.
thank you.
No.
All right, thank you.
There are no recent rewards to report. However, there is one denial. The fire department received a denial letter for the SAFER grant, which stands for Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. And the reason for the denial, the Department of Homeland Security stated in its denial letter that the grant was oversubscribed. There were 2,182 applications, which is a 62% increase from fiscal year 2008. And there was only enough money for 200 grants. All applications requested $1.2 billion in grants, and total SAFER funds are approximately only $210 million. There was a 2-phase review of the grant, and each phase was weighted equally. The first was an automated assessment, and the second was a review by the panel of fire service peers, and there were 4 criteria. They were clarity of project description, demonstration of financial need, demonstration of benefits to be derived from the funds, and effect on daily operations. Currently, the CAO is in the process of reviewing job and expenditure data for Q2 2010. We're preparing a comprehensive report to the committee on this. And finally, I'd like to highlight that the CAO hosted an audit training by KPMG on September 1st to help employees improve grant management skills and to learn the implications of ARA. And we received a lot of positive feedback from the various departments that attended. Some of them are in the process of preparing an offshoot presentation for subcontractors and their grant staff. Thank you.
Okay. Colleagues, any questions?
Stand up. The difference between New York City getting $7.7 billion, City of Los Angeles getting about $600+ million, is primarily because of healthcare and educational programs that we do not manage.
Right.
Is there any way to segregate those programs out? And actually, on the reverse side, is there any way to show what the county has gotten in health and educational dollars that we are not listing here?
Right.
It's kind of hard to compare apples to apples.
We did that once before, if you remember, and we compared basically the number of jobs. This was early on, the number of jobs that New York City had created in the categories that we matched with them, and we were at the same level that they were. And predominantly, I know most of those like jobs and expenditures are in the healthcare area and in the educational area to do that. But we can go through those, and I can pull out the ones where they're similar, or that we qualified for along with them and give you a comparison on it. But-
Councilmember Alarcon, we're actually in the process of doing that as part of the report that we're going to be bringing forward. We're basically taking the information that we previously provided. We did a breakdown program by program of our city versus New York City, and we're going to do that. We can look at what sort of information is available as far as ARA funding through the county. That's something that we haven't done yet, but we can see what is available.
Yeah, I think it's in our interest to compare Los Angeles County to New York. What is it, a county or?
Well, it's a city and county.
City and
with
county.
the 5 boroughs that they have. We also, want to look at what LAUSD has gotten, want to look at what the community college system has gotten, what MTA has gotten.
Right.
Those are all agencies here that are receiving ARA dollars that impact us here in Los Angeles.
That would be great if we could get that information. I think then we would be able to better assess whether we're being treated fairly. And I noticed Baltimore, it's kind of unusual, Baltimore received over $1 billion. What is going on in Baltimore?
I think if you look at it, though, most of the money that Baltimore received is, that large portion is the federal Medicaid. They got $240 million in federal Medicaid aid to the states. So the state of Maryland, it's down the bottom of the page 2 on their column. See, they actually, if you look at above that, they received $343 million compared to our $596 million. I'll be happy to go over this with you later or with your staff.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Baltimore that received $1 billion, it was Houston.
Oh, yeah, Houston, if you look at Houston, all but $100 million of that is money that they reported from outside entities.
What does that mean?
Well, in our case, we reported, like HACLA is not a city department, so we reported that the money that HACLA received is an independent agency.
Okay.
I don't know, Stacy, did you report any other? Was there?
In other words, they receive funding directly from the federal government.
Yeah,
as
right.
opposed to going through any of our processes.
Right, so they're a quasi-city agency, but
Many of us
we
have felt
listed
that way.
it. We listed it in the other column.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you very much. We'll go to item 2.
Good morning. My name is Mark Hoffman. I'm with the Community Development Department.
Bring that mic a little closer, please.
Okay. I'm here this morning to present the monthly report, which reflects data as of August 2010 concerning the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, or EECBG. When Council authorized the CDD to administer the grant on behalf of the city, they requested the department to report on a monthly basis, and this is our 3rd monthly report. As you can see in our transmittal and the attached project status report, EECBG consists of 15 projects, 14 general program areas, and 8 city departments and an agency are basically implementing those projects. On our report, our project status report, you can see that there's progress in all the project areas. Of particular note is the QECB, because that item, which is associated with the city municipal retrofit program, will spend about 35% of this grant. And so the funding agency, the Department of Energy, is keenly interested in progress on this project, and with the QECB in particular. They have noted Council has taken action regarding this matter, and I think that has pleased them because, among other accomplishments, they want to see movement of the grant funds from their department to the City of Los Angeles. And when this money is drawn down, that will mark a major expenditure on their records regarding this grant. They also are interested in the other projects, and we talk with DOE on a weekly basis and email and call them throughout the week. I think this good working relationship between the city and DOE has been instrumental in then viewing our progress favorably. We also want to acknowledge all the work of the 8 city departments and agencies. They've cooperated with CDD extraordinarily as we've taken on this administrative responsibility. They've provided the information for much of this report, and they are present here to answer questions if you have any.
Good morning, Anna Mae Utam from the CAO. The status report from CDD includes several recommendations, including establishment of accounts for the different funds that have already been established. However, at this time, we recommend not moving forward with recommendation 3 and 4 and have CRA and the CAO come back with a separate report with regards to the RFQ process as well as the selection process for the different contracts related to the Clean Tech Corridor Integrated Strategy and the Commercial Retrofit Municipal Financial District Program.
Okay. Let me just ask a couple of questions. What does it mean when we talk about, in good faith, drawing down some of the $14 million, or is that all of the $14 million?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
On the report, it reflects that for good faith, because we've not made any expenditures, that we intend to draw down the $14 million as of September. What are we going to do with that money, and why do we need to draw that down?
Well, there is a deadline on September 20th where we have to obligate 20% of the funds. Right now, because of the slow moving of some of the projects in EECBG, we have been in constant communication with DOE, and we hope that with our effort to provide funding through the QECB and using some of the money from the municipal retrofit program, that will pretty much answer some of the expenditure requirements of the grant, which is, even though we will use some of the $14 million that's allocated for the municipal retrofit program probably around January when we issue the bond, that will be enough to satisfy the goal that DOE had in place for the grant.
Yeah. But I thought last meeting we had a council that we were contemplating that we had to evaluate the list of projects to make sure they were accurate, and that we were still uncertain as to the impact on the general fund. And so I'm just wondering, is it premature to draw down funds if we've not made a commitment?
No, we will not. Okay, I'm sorry. We will not be drawing any funds at all, but we are moving forward with the selection process for a subcontractor or consultant to review the 130 municipal facilities, whether they meet the 20% reduction in energy consumption goal. As I stated, we have met with DOE, and they are very happy with the fact that at least we are moving forward with the process of reviewing the QECB bonds.
So the issue here is that we're drawing down money to get the consultant to do the evaluation. Is that basically what we're doing?
Lucio, what we're basically saying is that the EECBG money is eligible to spend towards the cost of hiring a consultant who can tell us and verify whether those facilities meet the 20% test. However, we will still be coming back to council with a more thorough analysis on what the general fund impact would be on receiving authority to issue the debt, and we anticipate for that to happen. When we originally came before committee, we were thinking November. At the pace that we're going, we will be coming back December, January. What we did learn was that the QECB actually doesn't have the same deadline that the recovery zone bonds have, which was December 31st. We were under that impression. However, the feds have not yet established a deadline, but according to the state, they may, or according to our bond council, they may establish a deadline by early 2011. However, we will be reporting back to council with that information.
And so, in effect, we're implementing what the council approved the last time this item came to council.
I'm sorry, could you say that
in
again?
effect, we're implementing what the council approved at the last time it was at council. So we're getting the consultant on board, to evaluate the 130 sites so that we'll have a better sense of going forward on the 34 million later?
Yes, and we're working with General Services to do that.
Okay. And then let me just ask a couple of other issues. One of the recommendations is to change the lead, the city lead, from General Services, or what is it, the mayor's office as opposed to Ward and Power. What was the rationale on that?
One of the projects was entitled, it concerned the accountability of the ECBG funds, and the way this function moved, originally it was with the Environmental Affairs Department, and then the staff of that department that were involved with this grant moved to DWP, and so that line item was reflected as a DWP line item. But in fact, the mayor's office is going to be more involved with this particular line item. What they envision is publicizing the accomplishments of this grant and the benefits of energy conservation, and they had planned to hire consultants in this area and thought they would handle it on behalf of the city, whereas DWP has about 5 other line items associated with this grant, and so DWP was going to handle those line items.
Okay. And then let me ask on CDD asking for resolution authorities. Is that part of the consultant initiative, or is that something separate and apart?
That is something separate, and it's right now, that report is in the Personnel Committee.
Okay. Will that move forward for that implementation before you come back with the larger questions, answers to the larger questions?
In terms of the CDD positions?
Yeah, the positions.
Once the Personnel Committee move forward with either granting the resolution authorities, then we'll come back to ad hoc and to council.
Okay. So that would be an interim step. Now, what would those positions be doing in addition to whatever the consultants are doing?
Rhonda Gaston with Community Development Department. CDD was granted 5 position authorities to handle the grants management for EECBG. We envision having 2 management analyst type positions that would actually handle the hour reporting, as well as continue the liaison with DOE. We would additionally have accountants to actually do the distribution of funds and payments to departments and drawing down dollars from DOE. And then there are 2 program analysts that would actually work with DOE to make sure that the city's program line items are kept intact with the actual requirements for the grant.
And is that out of the 14 million?
No, that is, I believe, the last time we came to our committee, CDD was allocated $1.5 million that would handle 5 positions over the next 2 years.
Okay, do we know what the source of that 1.5?
It is EECBG dollars.
Okay.
Council member, there was in that report, there was an attachment B where we took out several money from the different grant projects. If I may, some of the funding will come out of the retrofit municipal buildings, which is from GSD, and around $142,000 will come out of that. Let me see, from water and power, we're taking out $31,000, and from their enhanced utility incentives, $66,765 from the single-family residential, around approximately $400,000 from the multifamily affordable residential financing from Housing Department, $204,000 from the commercial properties financing from CRA's project, $75,000 from the study of on-bill financing. Again, it's a mayor's office program right now. $66,000 from Clean Tech Corridor Integrator, which is managed by CRA, approximately $240,000 from the Port Technology Advancement Program from Harbor, and about $120,000 from the Accountability and Transparency, which is managed by Water and Power, and also $131,000 from the Enhancement of Energy Environment Conservation Strategy, also managed by Water and Power.
And you said that's attachment B? Is that
Yes.
before us today, or is that on a press?
It was part of the report that went to Personnel Committee.
So it's part of that report?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Let me just verify for the committee, you're asking us today to approve items, recommendations 1, 2, 5, and 6.
Yes, that is correct.
Colleagues, any questions? So we'll move that item with those recommendations and additions.
Can I ask one question?
Oh, hold on.
Before you go, just one question, because I know you have a cadre of staff there. This is the third report back on this money. Do we feel comfortable that 14 programs have been developed by various city departments? Do we have a list of the 14 program areas consistent with the 15 projects?
Yes. Attached to CDD's transmittal to this committee was a 4-page report, and those list all of the projects.
Is there a way to get, if this is public enough, because I know I do have the list here, do you have this on the website?
I don't believe it's on a website at this point, but we can put it on a website.
There were several meetings in my community, and there was a lot of interest in this, and we're all big on wanting all these programs. So it would be helpful if some of this was on the website. If it's clear enough that it can go on the website, it will give them some insight and empowerment as to what the status is of it. Because, like, for instance, the multifamily affordable residence financing. These things are very exciting to people in the community, and I think the more they know about single-family residential financing is another one that I know folks are interested in.
Council member, if we could put it on our LA Recovery website, the status report from CDD.
That would be great, and since my neighborhood councils participated in it, make sure that they're made aware of what took place, because they came to a couple of meetings we held, and they came up with ideas, and I just want that collaboration between the constituent and the city over these monies. You were going to say something?
And I just wanted to mention that out of the accountability and transparency line item that was just approved to be transferred to the mayor's office, that is the purpose of those funds, to actually publicize the 14 program areas and make sure that the community is well aware of what the monies will be used for.
Excellent, excellent. Good. So the sooner the better on that. Happy over. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move that item. That concludes the agenda, and so this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Vic. Thank you.